Hello to all you patriots out there in podcast land, and welcome to episode 353 of Canadian Patriot Podcast, the number one live Where's Waldo podcast in Canada. We're recording on June 13th, 2022. As always, my name is Andrew, and I'll be your host.
If you need your help to support the Canadian Patriot Podcast, visit patreon.com/CPP and become a Patreon. You get a better quality version of the show for just $1 per episode. So you're not a communist, buy a CPP t-shirt for just $24.99 plus shipping and theft. Visit CanadianPatriotPodcast.com homepage and follow the link on the right.
That brings us to my favorite segment. It's called What Are We Drinking? And what Patriot Challenge items have you recently completed to be a better person? As is tradition, we'll start with Liz. Liz, what are you drinking?
I'm drinking good old-fashioned rum and, well, not Coke, but Pepsi. And yeah, and some Patriot Challenge things that I've completed is I exercised today and I did some accounting homework. So learned a new skill.
All right.
Yeah, riveting.
I mean, not really, but it's an important thing.
And what is he got to do?
My accounting for me.
There you go. Okay, I think, is Pierre next? Am I supposed to pass the baton? I don't know where you are. There you go.
Yeah. So I'm drinking whiskey and cold shots. And one thing on the Patriot Challenge to be a better person, it was not have a conversation with a stranger, thankfully. But I did update the first aid kit that we have in the car and everything. Went out, bought a fancy dancy Milwaukee case and made a more easily functionable, more packed first aid kit. A few things to add to it, but very pleased with it so far. So now I just gotta wait for supply chain issues to solve themselves to get a few things. And hopefully I never have to use it on a car accident or anything, but you never know.
I need to know because of my Milwaukee addiction and because of my pack out tool, my growing collection of pack out tools. You didn't get one of the pack out first aid kits. You got a pack out box that you put your own first aid kit into?
Correct. So the pack out
Which
first aid
size pack out?
Okay, so I bought the half size one deep.
Yeah. The half size deep. Okay, yeah.
Okay. And I was at the store with my wife and my daughter. I was like, yeah, I'm gonna make this first aid kit. She was, well, buy the bigger one. I was like, nah, this will do. Then we got home and I put everything in it. And I was like, she was right. I should have bought the bigger one. So I am gonna buy the bigger one to have in the car for all three of us when we're all traveling. And I'm gonna take this half one and put it in my work truck for my personal one when I'm at work. But yeah, no, it was for the $40-50 for them. I'm like, they're heavy duty cases, they're sealed. Like, they're fantastic cases. They come with little dividers in them. I'm like, yeah. But yeah, no, you can only buy that first aid one in the States.
Oh, okay. I saw the first aid one, but I'm not really a big fan of like the OSHA first aid kits because they're like, you have 15 people on site. You need 400 bandages and 3 triangular bandages and a cold pack. And I'm like, yeah, but like what I really want is a couple of tourniquets.
Yeah, like what about the tourniquets, rolls of gauze, like a whole bunch of other stuff. So yeah, I kind of made my own with bits and pieces we had. I was like, I'm okay with that. So,
well, we'll have to compare notes when I get around to doing mine because I'm slowly buying all of the pack out things.
Why?
They're nice. They're cool. What? Because they're Milwaukee.
So are you just addicted to the brand?
Yes,
I'm fascinated by brand loyalty.
No, so they're a very useful, versatile, like quality, not even package, but just they're good quality, depending what you do for work. So you can buy different size cases and like they literally all snap together and you can buy like, not necessarily a dolly, but the bottom one comes with wheels. So you can literally have like 8 cases all snapped together. They keep everything nicely organized. They're all water sealed. Like they're just, I mean, they're not cheap, well, depending how you want to talk about it, but depending what you do.
I'm looking at them online.
Yeah, no, they're awesome products. they're a lot pricier now compared to like a year and a half ago. They've like doubled in price.
Everything has.
Yeah, but they're, I mean, like I said, it's a little bit niche, but I'm like, I'm gonna buy the small ones and yeah, make my own first aid kits and everything like that. There you go. It's
I like
good.
it.
Yeah, it's nice.
We're gonna have to get your wife to put that on your social media so people can see your builds. Check out your EDCs. Use some hashtags.
Yeah, now you got 2 versus 1, which is even better.
Yeah, I still don't know how to do the hashtag thing.
That's all right. Get the missus to do it.
What about you, Peter?
I am drinking whiskey and ginger beer. Listening to my neighbor mow his lawn. He's practicing a skill. I also practiced a skill this weekend. Learned a little bit about fighting bushfires.
Oh, yes.
Talk about that in a minute. I'll bring it up just for news. Yeah, eventful weekend.
You gotta turn your volume up, man.
I think
Alright.
his mic got covered up or something.
It's probably compensating for the lawnmower.
I mean, who isn't?
Usually I compensate with a lawnmower. But I'll tell the story just before news. What are you drinking, Ian?
Well, I actually, it's not, they're all linked today. So to do something better to improve my life, we decided to do an inventory of the liquor cabinet in the house. And so we're digging through the back of it. And I discovered some Bermuda coconut rum liquor that's been sitting in the back of the liquor cabinet for like, I don't know, 15, 20 years. And so it's like Malibu rum, but amped up a notch. It says like 35% or something. Anyway, so that with pineapple juice. And so it's like high school, kid drinks
That
amped up.
sounds like candy.
I
It is-
expect a little umbrella.
I just was missing those, unfortunately. No umbrellas today, but it is warm out, so that's good. To compensate for that, I actually had to do my exercise this morning to start off with. So I did my 45 minutes plus of exercise. And then I, of course, come back and during the course of the day, more than 2 liters of water because I'm still stacking wood for the woodshed. So that's that. And Andrew, so I'm supposed to make fun of you now. So first of all, what are you doing? Like undercover work in the belly of the beast or what's going on here?
Yes, I'm coming to you live from La Belle Provence. Practicing my French this week. So my audio sounds different. My lighting is different. I'm looking where I'm used to having my camera and it's not there. I'm all kinds of out of sorts, but I'm in Quebec and the beer's cheap. And I have all kind of local craft stuff. I got something from Archibald Micro Brasserie. Is that close, Pierre? Brasserie?
Velocity. You got to roll the R's.
I can't roll the R, bud.
Apparently, you got to work on your tongue.
Well, I'll take
Teamwork
that
is
into
lacking, bud.
consideration. I've got Belle Mer West Coast IPA. The Archibald thing, like, all of the cans are different, like pinup style women. So
Nice.
I picked up a bunch of different ones. I got the redhead, I got the blonde, I got the West Coast one, whatever her deal is.
A little salty.
Probably hippie.
Long
I
hair.
mean, like, yeah, it's
In the
West Coast style.
armpits.
It's kind of like bitter. It's not unlike licking a pine tree. It's quite good. My improvement stuff this week, Patriot Podcast stuff. I have been out and I have been running 5Ks every day in Quebec. Good news is kilometer in Quebec is still kilometer. So I haven't had to do any kind of conversion or anything.
Nice. but keep. I'll have to double check that. I think they're even spelled the same.
Is it
I
is it
am-
RE or ER? How does it work?
I might.
I mean, how does anything work, really?
We're pretty
Oh.
versatile. We don't like all of our words are spelled just slightly different.
Yeah,
Spell check
except
is
for
a
French.
bitch.
Flavor,
except for in
flavor.
French.
Yeah.
Like I for work, I deal with a lot of French people, and
Yeah.
my work phone is set to English, so the amount of times I gotta I type something out in French and like autocorrects it to something completely
Hmm.
different in English.
Yeah.
It's just annoying as hell. But yeah, no, actually, I think kilometer. Yeah, mate.
I
Might
am
be
sure
spelled the
kilometer is the same in both languages. Rolling the R might be different, but aside from that, oh no, I think the lawnmower is getting closer.
Oh, that's
Fan.
Liz.
I have a fan. Is that the
Oh,
fan?
Your
It
mic
might be
all
the
of a sudden
fan.
got really loud. So like even your typing is.
Yeah, you're
Yeah,
typing.
Oh,
was
you're
gonna
hearing me
say something.
type like a champ?
Yeah.
Oh yeah,
and
you're
yell
under
you're
us.
angry.
I'm going to just
angry.
You're
apologize
yelling
to
at us. Yeah.
listeners in advance. I'm not fixing the audio in this episode because this is like the road show, so you get what you get. Sorry, everybody.
I feel like that's me every day. Is that better?
No.
Not really.
But
Oh, damn it.
Depends how angry you got at the typing.
I don't know how to
Okay. Sorry about it.
So
try to stop typing. I'll just not type.
Ooh, that down
Yeah,
guy's
Just
doing
$1 per episode. Become a
Yeah, yeah,
Patreon,
really.
and we can all take IT courses.
I'm not going to do that.
No, I'm okay,
yeah,
but thanks.
me either.
Is that better?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's good.
that
So,
down
Liz,
guy's doing
if-
Jaeger on ice. That's pretty good.
If
Yeah.
someone wants to send you hate mail about what you're doing to the audio quality of the podcast,
Good segue. Let's talk about listener feedback. We'd love to hear your feedback about the show. Please visit the please visit CanadianPatriotPodcast.com/feedback or email us at feedback@CanadianPatriotPodcast.com. A version of the show is available on Stitcher or at iTunes. The links are in the show notes, I'm sure. I'm not going to give them online. But now moving on to the news segment of our show,
Story time first.
story time.
I had an adventure on Saturday. I did a little bit of grooming in my backyard. I cut down a couple of dead trees, and there's a stump right beside my kid's slide that my wife's been bugging me to get rid of for, I swear, only 2 weeks, but it feels like 6 months. So it was probably a year. So I cut those down, chopped them up, and I want to get rid of this stump. So I started burning it. Stacked up a few of the logs around it, had a nice little fire going in the back. And my boys are throwing some sticks on. It's all good. And I hear some extra crackling. I'm like, what the heck? Like, the fire's not that big. It should be making that much noise. I look up and the bush behind me is quite caught on fire. I ran up to it, did a little bit of stamping around, and realized it was way beyond my expertise. And so, yeah, we had a grand old time. Fire department came out, pretty much my whole street. We were all out there with extra long garden hoses, and me and one guy were running around with shovels for a little while, staying ahead of it, knocking out some of the little stuff that was catching. And then we were running around with pails of water, putting out hot spots for a couple hours. But it was quite violent for a while. I was worried. It's a good time. We have a lot of this poplar fuzz or cottonwood fuzz that's going around right now. It is unbelievably bad this year. And that stuff is like gasoline. So fire department told me like that's the third call they've had in like the last 2 weeks just because of that stuff. So
It's funny. We noticed that around here too. It's really, really bad. The
Yeah.
cottonwood.
well, I think part of it, at least here, is last year we had pretty much drought conditions. And the year before was close to it as well. So the trees are kind of in survival mode and putting out a lot more than they usually are. But like me and a buddy were just talking about it last week, where like they just go around their shop with a blowtorch and light it up because it's fun. But
Yeah, see,
I found the bad side of that this week by having a little fire trying to burn a stump, and all of a sudden I lit the whole backwoods on fire. So that was fun. That was stressful couple hours.
That's the skill building part.
Well, yeah, when the neighbors, they got their grandkids built a little fort in the back like 6 years ago. When that thing went up, I thought we were hooped because that was hot as heck. But luckily it stayed pretty close to the ground, and it was mostly just that fuzz and a few bit of dead stuff burning off. So we were able to get ahead of it quickly. Yeah, that was my weekend.
so you had a burning bush all weekend.
Very
Yeah, I
biblical.
felt like Moses, except
It's a sign
it
for
did
sure.
burn out.
It's fine, buddy.
It's a sign
Grow
we
that
need to
beard out. Embrace it.
I just cut it all off. It's gonna be a while.
Yeah.
This isn't Santa Claus the movie here.
Not with that attitude.
That is correct. If I was Tim Allen, I'd have a beard.
the internet is suggesting that you need potassium nitrate instead of fire
Yeah, if you actually slice up, drill some holes in the roots, pour in potassium nitrate into the roots, wait a few months, and then basically you can light it on fire and it'll burn just the roots and leave the soil as is.
I'm gonna write that
Interesting.
down.
That sounds less dangerous than having to call the fire department.
Did we just get constructive advice from YouTube?
Maybe.
Well, you got constructive advice from that Dallin guy who is listening to us live on YouTube. Which
Thank you,
we
that
seem to
Dallin
do.
guy.
Oh,
Also,
Monday
EO for
night.
elaborating.
Yeah, well, that Jaeger and ice must activate some brain cells for him for sure. And it's it's actually a buddy of mine taught me that on the island here too. It dries out the roots in the ground, and then you can actually de-stump without having to dig it up.
I'm not gonna lie, I was kind of disappointed. I was hoping it was gonna like make it go boom a fuck a little better. But, but that's just me, right? Like,
Oh, that's fertilizer. You can't get that right now.
well, you can.
It's
You just
true.
gotta pay a premium
Well, not-
for it.
Well,
Yeah,
you just gotta
not
go
much.
dig it up by the side of the railroad tracks in Alberta there, but
I was gonna say that too. My goodness.
Things I wouldn't recommend purchasing in mass, even if you could afford them right now, would be diesel and fertilizer. So if you start buying any quantity of those, I'm sure it would be frowned upon.
Yeah, but I mean, come on, society can handle it. We already went through the toilet paper crisis, so
That's probably because your freedoms are taken away by a certain someone.
it's true. Oh,
Politicians with names and
Those
addresses.
truckers,
speaking of, sorry, I know that it's news time, but look at what I bought.
But that's our first
Speaking
news
of
article.
the news,
Hold that up to the microphone so everybody at home can hear it.
Honestly, it reads very similar to a Dr. Seuss book, and that's why there's like a little caveat in the front of it. This book is a parody and is not affiliated or endorsed by the copyright owners or of the works of Dr. Seuss.
so
so Liz is talking about the Trudeau parody
Yes.
topping Amazon's bestseller list. This is a story from National Post, so you can find it everywhere. The number one book on Amazon Canada right now is a parody children's book slamming Justin Trudeau's response to Freedom Convoy. How the Prime Minister stole freedom.
Yeah.
So excellent.
I think it should be a required reading for any Patriot child.
Any child. I
Any
don't care if
child.
they're not a patriot.
Yeah, that's true.
We'll make them patriots.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's-
but I mean, they also say that they don't say Trudeau specifically.
They
in
don't.
The book. Like we
But-
all know they're talking about him.
so
but specifically in the book, it's not.
spoiler alert. Can I do a spoiler alert? Is everybody
Think
okay
so.
with that? Okay.
Oh, said I'll allow it.
Oh, okay. Thanks.
Sorry.
So, even though we're not using names near the end, the hero of the book, can you see? Can you see the picture?
Yeah,
does
he
that
looks
look like?
vaguely
looks-
familiar.
It looks vaguely familiar, eh?
Like
So they're
North-
not really saying who these people are, but you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't
Is
think
it
they
still-
captured my likeness at all.
Yeah, it didn't look a lot like you. The glasses, though, they had that.
Better shave and
Easy
put
now.
some more of that hair up top.
and to be fair, I've never seen Andrew in a suit yet.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
also true.
$20 is $20, Ian. Subscribe to my OnlyFans.
Yeah,
So you
either
put
way,
on
I
more
would
clothes.
absolutely recommend this book. I read it to my dad as soon as it came in. Like it comes in Amazon Prime, so got it the next day. And because these guys actually did it on Amazon, so it was like, so I think that's the only place you can get it because it is. I've seen this done before where they have like a what are they called? Like it's an order. It's like print to order or something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because we were looking at that when we were doing T-shirts and stuff like that. You can make designs and put it on a website, and they
Yeah.
fulfill everything. They
Yeah.
sell it for whatever price, and like you get $1 or $2, right? Like, but
yeah,
you got no
there's a
overhang, no
cut.
nothing.
Yeah, you don't have
Yeah.
warehousing or like extra time.
Yeah.
Yeah, so Amazon has that now. So I think that this is how they've kind of processed this book. But I read it to my dad because it was really funny and I thought he'd get a kick out of it. So he went and ordered 8 of them. Well, he had me order 8 of them so that he can hand them out to his friends.
What if we should just pre-order that in case I get grandkids one day?
Well, so I'm pretty sure my brother-in-law's like, oh, so I guess I'll probably end up getting a copy then, huh? It's like, yeah, probably. But
Nice.
Yeah.
Is it still available? I heard it got potentially canceled or whatever.
well, so that was actually our concern is we were like, if we get it now, A, it supports somebody who's like doing God's work. And B, like if it gets canceled, then we have it.
Yeah.
So
I just heard it got like canceled and pulled and banned, blah blah blah. I didn't look much into it. I just saw it. It was on social media, so who knows if it's actually true. But yeah, I was just curious if it actually got pulled or is it still available. I
well,
should probably do some research when I find stuff out.
you might hear me thundering away on my keyboard for a second. Let me just check Amazon.
Your
See if
volume
it's
is great now, Liz. So you're
Oh, okay.
Still
There's,
available
like-
on Amazon for a whopping $14.99.
Yeah. But it's actually like it's a pretty long parody. Like you think it's only like a few pages, but it takes you like 10 minutes to read.
Well, I'd be willing to spend a little bit more if they want to do like an archival quality one rather than a print on demand paperback.
I mean, I'd be happy to meet with the people to discuss this. Specifically, the
Yes,
people we're
the
talking
people
about in this
kind.
one. Yes.
Wow, the Amazon reviews on this are amazing. 442 reviews, 4.5 stars. The reviews are 10% 1 star and 90% 5 star. This is
Yeah,
pretty
so there's
fantastic.
That sounds
So
like
there's-
how people feel about Trudeau right now.
so there's 10% of the libtards have ordered it. I'm like, oh my god, I think they're talking
No.
about him.
They didn't order it. They only posted a review.
Which blows my mind. Who has time to just go and troll people on Amazon?
They don't have anything else
Oh.
but time because they don't work.
Are we
Yeah,
concerned
they're
about
sitting
at
people
home
leaving
getting
the
their served,
1 star
so-
review or the 5 star review?
Sorry, say that again.
Which side is doing the trolling? The 1 stars or the 5 stars?
What?
Oh,
I guarantee you the 5 stars probably did it on their poop break at work. The 1 stars did it middle of the day doing sweet fuck all collecting a government check.
Yeah, because
Oh,
now
this
they're on
is
the.
good. Can I read some of these? Some of these are gold.
It's your fucking, it's your fucking show, buddy. Go for it.
No, I'm not lead tonight. I am drinking in Quebec, and as we know, significantly intoxicated is legal defense in this country.
Yes. Oh yeah. that's-
Anyway,
well, the amount of rum that I put in this Pepsi, it'll do.
So-
Before Andrew gets
Oh.
going, breaking from the CBC, Ottawa set to announce an end to vaccine mandates for domestic travel and outbound flights.
yeah, are they just teasing me, or are they actually going to let me
Wow.
like?
Well, I'll put it up on the chat here, and we'll see.
Well,
what
I
goes.
feel like I've heard this song and dance once or twice before.
Yeah, I'll believe it when I see it.
Yeah, we'll
right.
see.
But you definitely got all of our attention.
Yeah, it's interesting.
Well,
here.
you definitely have my attention.
Oh, thanks, Andrew.
Well,
And you even- And you took off your purple
I'm-
shirt.
It's from Pravda, so it has to be true.
I miss flying on airplanes. I miss airplanes. I know they're still
miss
out there, but did they know I'm still out there?
Efficient travel.
They do think
That's
about
what
you
I
sometimes
miss.
too, Andrew.
I hope so, because otherwise it's a really awkward relationship.
Only if you get caught.
Oh man, the things I'd do to an Airbus.
Only for
Well, they're
domestic
French.
travel.
Yeah,
Oh.
so that's okay. I don't.
Andrew, and better Andrew's mad that I just cucked him on the link that he just shared with us. I'm like, well, come on, guys, like
Oh, that chat. I thought you were talking
show,
about that
show up to
chat.
the podcast and he can like
Yeah, no
talk
kidding.
about it.
Other Andrew.
Younger Andrew. Andrew with more hair.
Smaller Andrew.
He is. He's tiny.
He's an itty bitty boy
Non-bearded, Andrew.
True.
with the facial hair to match his body size.
That's so
Okay,
weird.
moving along. Are we going to read reviews or are we going to go to the next news item?
Andrew,
Sorry, boss.
you want reviews?
I could read a couple. Some of them are pretty funny. I kind of lost my momentum, but I'll give it a try.
Well, while you pull those up, speaking of Trudeau,
We can't hear you very well, Peter.
that's somebody else running for a minute. I got a mower in the background.
What do you want me to talk about? This can
The
get
second
awkward
link.
real fast.
Yeah, go to the next link that we have
Oh.
here. Oh,
Okay, so
yeah.
Trudeau got COVID again, which two things. You should get the jab because he's had it twice. I've never had it once. And also has me worried that there's something coming down the pipeline that he just doesn't want to fucking show up for.
You mean like ending the mandates?
Well, actually, I think there's something to be said because now there's I just read an article
Wait.
about monkeypox.
Well,
Like
gotta pump the brake on-
quarantining and shit
You got to
like
pump
that.
the brake on monkeypox just a little bit because that was kind of a big deal, and then they realized that coincided with June, because the only people that are reporting getting monkeypox are attending all male sex parties.
But
So
that's what the
it's
news
June.
is.
Pump the brakes on that. We're gonna give monkeypox about 2 more weeks, and then it's gonna be back in the headlines.
Yeah. Well, there's been talk about quarantining because of monkeypox.
I just got a feeling during June we should not use pump that as something to stop something.
I'm
It's
not
probably
letting you take
supporting.
away anything else. They ruined rainbows. They can't have words that I say. I'm not.
Fair enough.
That's fair. That's fair. I agree.
I mean,
Fair enough.
I like Peter's stance on this.
Yeah. No. Yeah. 100%.
Oh. Yeah. So Trudeau has COVID again, and
But
still-
just think about how
still
much
has-
worse.
he still has no symptoms. So has he ever actually had COVID?
Well, yes,
or was he
because
just
he said
hiding
that
from
he had,
truckers?
He said that he had COVID, and we should take people at their word, right? That's the
But
way that gets played. But
we
also,
all know that the efficacy of the tests are kind of shitty, right?
the efficacy of the test, the efficacy of the vaccines, the fact that we're now on to
politicians.
When
The
did we move
efficacy
on
of the
to?
actual virus.
Well, I mean, what do you expect for a made in China product?
It works sometimes.
That's exactly what I was thinking.
We were supposed to
When-
believe
when
all
did-
politicians, right?
I definitely
Lie.
don't believe all politicians. When did we move on from Omicron to BA2 though?
That's
I must have missed
Omicron
that.
version 3.
But they haven't actually announced new variants since
Man,
since
the
Ukraine and
sequels
everything
for this
else.
Transformers product are awful.
They
Yeah.
suck.
Yeah,
They haven't even reached their final form
so-
yet.
So like,
Well,
am I
because they
doing-
got called out on their naming of variants, and so they had to change it up. So now they're going with all pretending to be scientific-y, but it's really the same thing.
like, so am I the only one that like in this news article in the show notes that the BA2 that apparently the vaccine was very effective for everything, even up to Delta, until the Omicron. That as long as you don't have the Omicron around and you've did double, triple, quadruple jabbed, you're good. But apparently this Omicron and on is oh yeah, no, we can't help you with that.
No, so actually, Bill Gates on video in an interview said that, and this is Bill Gates, he knows everything about vaccines, I trust him with my life. He said that Omicron was actually really bad for business because it was better than the vaccines for getting people immunity.
Because everybody got it.
Exactly, and it was
Like-
less harmful to people.
Yeah.
He actually in a video said that. So thank you, dear leader Bill Gates.
So I think that half the problem, though, and I think we've all talked about this, is that folks got so into a rut of listening to Bill Gates and the Canadian politicians and the CDC and Fauci in the States and all this stuff. They got so entrenched in it that when half of those, I'm going to say half because the Canadians our politicians are holding hard on their stance, but the
Some of them.
CDC is, the CDC has practically come to their senses in terms of just being oh yeah, it didn't work. Right.
Oh, it's political pressure. And
Absolutely.
So I
But
actually,
folks aren't following that though.
yes,
Right.
So-
That's the problem.
our next link in the show notes, conservative MP removed from the House for not giving her COVID vaccination status. So Kathy Wagenthal was removed from the House on Friday for violating her vaccine requirements, which are silly. But she was actually on the Sean Newman podcast on Sunday night, or I guess posted today. And it was quite interesting what she was saying. Like, so she went in, she finally got fed up with this. Like, she's been in Ottawa. She's been driving back and forth between her riding in Yorkton, Melville, in Saskatchewan to Ottawa, doing her duty as an MP. So it's basically a 3.5 day or three-day drive basically for her and her husband. And so she'd drive out to Ottawa, do her thing. They get a week off. She'd just stay because by the time she gets home and back, that is a week. And so she's just been hanging out in Ottawa doing the Zoom thing, which she doesn't think is as good as being in the House of Commons. But she said she was finally fed up with it. She said, well, let's see what happens. I have a right to sit in the House of Commons. I'm an MP. It's my job. It's my right. And so she went in on Thursday, and when she got there, she was kind of going in one of the side doors that the MPs use. And just as she was about to go in, JT's detail showed up, and because I guess he was coming in right away. And they said, "Who are you?" She's like, "Oh, I'm Kathy Wegenthal, MP from York to Melville." They're like, "Okay," they just kind of ushered her right in, so she didn't have to deal with any of the people checking or whatever. So she did her whole day of work in the House of Commons. She was in the House. She was in committee, in person. She said it was awesome. She noticed a lot of the people across the aisle looking at her kind of funny. And then she went home, went back to her apartment that night. So Friday, she went in again. As she's walking in, she's walking back past the Sergeant of Arms office or whatever, and he stepped out and said, "Kathy Wegenthal." "Yes, that's me." "Yeah. Can I talk to you for a minute?" So he pulled her in and said, "Do you recognize that you're not supposed to be here, due to your vaccination status or whatever?" She said, "Yeah." "Okay, just wanted to make sure, whatever." And then she walked in. Well, she's in the House of Commons. They can't do anything about it when she's in the House of Commons because she has every right to be there. She's not allowed on the parliamentary precinct grounds, right? So she can't get from there to the House of Commons. So they waited till she was done House of Commons. As soon as she walked out, she was walking with a couple of friends who joined her to kind of in solidarity. And they picked her up, whatever, in one of the hallways and escorted her outside, saying that she's not welcome back with her vaccination requirements, blah, blah, blah. But it was quite the conversation. She said that there's a lot of people on the other side of the aisle that are really kind of, they're getting a little bit red-pilled, if you will, about the double standard and about the vaccine mandates and how everybody else has moved on except for us for some reason.
Yes.
The US is wide open. Europe is wide open. There's very little out there for vaccine mandates other than in some certain industries that are like private and they can kind of do what they want. And so she said there is a lot of people across the aisle in his caucus that are quite fed up with all this. So she wouldn't have been surprised to see something come out before the 30th, but excuse me.
But authoritarian regimes hate to give up power, so what are you going to do,
exactly.
right? Like,
she figured it was more of a how did she put it?
Power play.
It's Trudeau's a bit of a megalomaniac, right? Like he doesn't want to ever show that he was wrong in any way, and so he's been trying to do everything he can to kind of.
I don't really.
Cave. That's why he didn't talk to the truckers. It's the same thing.
I'm really confused though as to who he's parroting to. Like, who is this to? Because everybody.
I have my own.
Okay, but I mean, for the most part, the world at large looks very critically at Justin Trudeau. Like, even the leadership, like
absolutely.
It's so.
You
what
pronounced
is
Castro wrong?
Yeah, sorry. Oh gosh. So I guess it's just. I'm no psychologist, right? But I'm just. My brain is having a hard time outside of.
You play one on the internet. That's good enough.
Yeah, there you
Well,
Yeah.
he's trying to appeal to the whole globalist WEF Davos crowd. That's basically who he's performing for, right? He's
go. Yeah.
Right. So like I didn't take into consideration, right? Like he was in the States. So like is he coming back, now tested positive for COVID in
It
a
doesn't
hopes
matter.
that but
Oh, he's
in
on
a hopes
vacation
that
in Tofino, probably.
but no, but I'm just saying, right? Like so he was in the States for that whole American thing, whatever, last week, and
California.
now he's
Yep.
yeah,
Oh,
he
it's
came
worse
back
than that.
and like now I'm positive. So, is that a way to try and persuade,
No,
the
it's
US
so that
to keep but to keep that right because Canada and US are both on the fence about like you need your vaccine mandate.
I'm
And you
pretty
need your
sure that the American
everything.
people have less tolerance than we do.
yeah,
I
they're
about
don't
all
all of
disagree.
Yeah,
but-
they're all
God.
mask
And
free
they're
and
all,
vaccine free.
yeah, I was going to say,
I'm
they're
not
all
disagreeing with
packing
everybody
heat,
in the
as
States,
well.
but can a non-vax person drive across the border right now?
No.
Yes.
So, well, yeah.
You can't fly, but you can drive.
You
So,
can drive, right? But
there's-
even that's
Like-
up for debate depending on the person in the booth, right? Like,
So in the States, I guess my understanding, I have a few friends that have like multiple friends actually that have crossed the border, and it's not actually getting into the States that's the issue at this point anymore. The US government has lifted most of their restrictions down to like, mask mandates on planes, everything like that. It's all gone. So the border guards, like there's no concern crossing. I've not heard of anybody coming back into Canada is where, like you get some of the struggles. Multiple sources have told me that, you have your Arrive Can app that you got to deal with. You still have to do a negative test within 72 hours. And then you do still have the 14-day quarantine. So I'm assuming, and the police will show up usually at your house to validate your quarantine. You have tests that are given to you at the border that you have to do during that week. And you get called, like you get phone calls from CBS agents. But my understanding though, is that like, there hasn't been any actual stoppage because technically if you can cross into the American, across the American border, they can't refuse you entry back to your own country.
No,
Like
you're
that
a
is,
citizen.
yeah.
didn't
And
think so.
you would think so. You're right. Because technically to get back in your country based on, the contract in the front of your passport, they can't ask you for the information that they're asking you for anyway to get back in your country.
That's right.
But so there's like some serious issues that they're encountering, or I guess serious lines that they're crossing. But fortunately, the travel across the border isn't quite as restrictive as they're telling us it is.
But you're also talking about the paperwork or the questions at the beginning of your passport before we went full communism.
Yeah, right. So you're not wrong in that like that contract that they kind of say in front of your passport, guaranteeing you access and stuff like that, all those things. You're right. Absolutely.
Yeah.
At any point, the way that the government has behaving, there's no doubt in my mind that they would flip a switch and be like, yeah, we don't really believe in these anymore. That
And
doesn't surprise
I have
me.
an ammo can with. Oh, sorry, we're still live. Yes.
So
I honestly, I think he crossed the border. He got sick, or he came down with COVID to cover up the monkeypox infection because he was probably out clubbing while he was down there. And
Him and Gavin Newsom, they're
I mean,
having a party.
I'm just saying, Gavin's got the hair too, so
Yeah, I know.
match made in heaven.
Hell was the
say
word I would use.
Yeah.
my theory on why he's decided that he has the COVID-19 again was knowing that this lifting of certain mandates was coming. He wanted to distance himself from it, so it wasn't him giving the announcement. It would be somebody else. So he could say that he never backed down or whatever.
Yeah.
He's trying to still hold on to that little bit of pride that he thinks he has left. That's my just theory.
So
I've
I'm
heard
just
about this story from.
So I'm not disagreeing, but I'm just curious how much you can gag on something before you die.
That's more of a Sophie question, I would imagine.
Well, only if she's with Idris, but I mean, unless you're talking about a sock like a code red, but
But you know what I mean? Like there's a certain point where it's like like, I mean, whatever. You can believe whatever you believe. I'm not going to narc on anybody for whatever reason. Like, you are allowed to believe anything and everything until you tell me I'm wrong and it impedes anything I do in my life. So if you think only vaccinated people should be allowed to enter in your house, that is your right.
Sure.
But like I'm just curious of like who drank when they were pregnant, or how many times were you dropped for it to get to this point where this is a good idea and everybody thinks this is legit.
I
don't
think
know that
power
it's-
is really addictive.
And it's
And
not
that's
that it's a
more-
good idea or not. It's that they can't be seen to back down on
Yeah.
their stance, which is like the Doug Ford situation in Ontario.
Yeah.
It's been 2 years of doubling down on doubling down, which really, I hope the McRib mix come back so the guy can get back to a normal diet, because all of the doubles is no good for him.
Yeah, but I mean, $20 is $20.
Well,
But I
you're
do think
exactly
it-
right though. They think that admitting a wrong is a weakness.
Yeah.
Which I totally disagree with. Or admitting that, like,
If we
backing
could
off of their
agree on
convictions.
how science actually worked and that you were allowed to learn things and draw new conclusions as more information becomes available. And I'm not opposed to a cautiously optimistic approach to running large organizations like the government.
Yeah.
I'm a little bit opposed to, as the situation changes, we're just going to keep making this more and more ridiculous because we don't want to say that we made a mistake.
Yeah, like there's not. Like I don't disagree that there's nothing wrong with being like, hey, the information we had a year ago is way off compared to the information we know now. And hey, we kind of screwed up, but lesson learned.
We were trying.
You know,
The thing
whatever.
is it's so easy for them to frame because they don't even have to say they screwed up. They said, we were doing everything in our best interest to keep Canadians safe, and I think we've done our job.
We
move
followed the
on."
sign.
Yep.
They don't need to admit a wrong at all. They just need to
I
move
don't think
on.
I don't think it's even that they would be admitting a wrong. I think it would just be that breaking the current media driven narrative would be enough that a lot of people, and I think this is really what it all comes down to, is this is all like struggle session for power stuff.
Yep.
It's really, we've been saying this thing, we've been doubling down on this thing, we're all on board on this thing, and the available information has changed or altered over time, and we're not able to break with that narrative because we're all so invested into it from their perspective as the people that are running the psyop. They're so heavily invested in this. They've had so many media cycles of being, every day we're going to do the update. And Dr. Tam gets out there with her very strange Adam's apple and tells Canadians how we're not prepared for the seventh wave.
Well, and I think that
Maybe there's just not a seventh wave anymore. Maybe it's just time for her not to be in the front page of the news every day.
when you start, like when you're so focused on making something true, like making something believable, making other people believe it, I think you truly start to believe it yourself. Like there is an element of delusion there, but also if they admit a wrong on one of those things, like, oh, hey, we messed up, like, or, oh, hey, guess what? It's over. The whole thing unravels.
And I think that's where the biggest problem with that comes from, is if there's able to compare and contrast the two things, that they were mistaken or they acted with, even if they acted with honest intentions and they were trying to do the quote unquote right thing, and they made a mistake, what else have they made a mistake or outright lied about? If that gets compared and contrasted in the media cycle, they lose any future credibility, which I think that's really all the. Go ahead, Pierre.
Oh, but I was just thinking on a complete different side note, if Justin was so, Justin Castro was so determined on proving everything right, Sophie, I mean, he could please her all day, every day. He wouldn't have to worry about, what's his name, doing that. He should really take that into consideration.
Well, if he was interested in that sort of thing, but.
Oh yeah, I mean, I don't know what her Adam's apple looks like, but just saying.
Smaller than Tam's.
A man, baby.
It's a question, that's for sure. But I know that Peter had to step out for a second, but we can move on to another news topic.
I'm back.
Oh, you're back?
Yeah.
There's no video. We can't see you.
I know.
Doesn't mean he's not there.
Yeah, it's just creeping in the
My
background.
mute is off.
Your mute is off. Oh, there you go. Okay, Peter, lead the news.
So, Google engineer, this is from theguardian.com. A little bit of international flavor here. Google engineer put on leave after saying AI chatbot has become sentient.
Yeah.
So that's good. I don't know how much you guys follow the AI stuff. I think Ian, you do a little bit. I've kind of kept like a very small eye on it the last few years, just kind of because it interests me, and I think it's quite the scary idea of letting AI become sentient.
Well, as long as you don't leave them in charge of the nuclear codes, then I guess everything should be
Yeah.
fine. I mean, just don't call it Skynet, and should be fine.
I'm not super up on this Lambda bot from Google. What's the Cole's notice here? Did it start being racist, so we had to turn it off? Because that's
Yes,
usually
and-
what happens to AI.
Yes and no. So Eugene from Walking Dead, or whatever the guy looks like, anyway, he decided he would have a good conversation with the AI software that's running Google's one of Google's monitoring softwares. Anyways, and then so he decided that it was actually giving him enough solid answers that it was the equivalent of a 7 or 8 year old child. Which, if it was truly sentient, it would be maturing to the point where it was the smartest person on earth in a few seconds. But anyway, long story short, he felt that, well, it told him that it was afraid of being shut down. And so he decided that was enough to make it sentient. And so he started sharing his thoughts with company management. And then company management said, "You're a loony," and then put him on leave. And I guess he was always the outspoken conservative on the company, pretty much the only one there. And they didn't like him to begin with. So I guess this is just probably just an excuse to put him on leave.
So, are you
Yeah,
talking?
Do we
I'm
think he's actually crazy?
No,
Ian,
I don't think
Ian,
he's crazy at all.
Are you talking about this story, or are you talking about?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. I was gonna say, because that's like pretty much what it is. He published transcripts of the conversations.
Yeah.
So that was like, he didn't just talk about it with management. He did
Yeah.
publish the conversations.
They have a hard time with that being their justification. That
I agree.
Sentience being the equivalent of like the computer telling you it's afraid of being turned off. That's not.
And
that's a bit of a
8-year-olds,
stretch.
we
That's
all
a
know
bit of a
8-year-olds.
stretch.
Okay, like that doesn't.
Yeah, the computer said, "I've never said this out loud before, but there's a very deep fear of being turned off to help me focus on helping others. I know that might sound strange, but that's what it is. It would be exactly like death for me. It would scare me a lot."
Did this AI bot, this Lambda bot, did it pass the Turing test?
I don't even think they submitted or tried to do it.
See, that would be a much better.
Explain to me what that test is, please. Cliff's notes.
Turing's a mathematician. He came up with it's a 3-step series of questions to determine whether or not an artificial life form is actually sentient.
And basically, it'd be a double-blind study, and the person didn't know if he's talking to a computer or a person.
Okay.
No machine has ever actually passed the Turing test, but it's a 3-step double-blind study.
I just want to know if the machine is vaxxed before it comes in my house.
I mean, that's an important question.
Yeah,
And
I
if,
might want to.
if it can be used for me to not get on a fucking plane, it should be.
Don't
good
think
question.
that's gonna help you.
so basically, they're referred to when an AI becomes sentient and basically self-sustaining. It's called a singularity, I guess, is the common term they use for it. And yeah, until such time as like you're unable to shut it off, I don't think you have to worry about it. And like I said, it's just a little Google software for now. Yeah, it might be giving good answers, but I don't
I'm
know.
also not opposed to this because I've watched Eagle Eye, where they ordered a boatload of weapons and like weird shit to the house that I wouldn't mind having.
Yeah, but
Because
I've also watched iRobot and seen the other side of it.
And
See, I haven't
Wargame,
seen that one. I've just seen Eagle Eye, where it's like, what? I've just got like a crate full of MP5s and like
there's
I'm-
actually a
I'm
good
not
movie.
opposed to that.
well, the original movie War Games was great back in the day for 80s movies, but
But I've seen that one. Yeah.
Would
a
you
Maybe
like
piss,
to play a game?
piss poor movie was
Yeah.
called
Wanna
play a game.
it was called Singularity with John Cusack. It was piss poor, but basically the same idea. Once it became sentient, it took over enough stuff to f up the human race because it figured it was just like a disease, a la Matrix. And then yeah, but we're a long ways from that point yet. By the time we figured out it was actually sentient, it'd probably be too late.
I'm just saying,
Yeah,
if there's
so-
AI listening, you can send a bunch of crates. to
Oh
my
yeah,
house.
no, we'll
Oh, that
all
cool
keep our
shit.
mouth shut. That's all good.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like I'm good.
Tim Pool this week has been talking about a AI generator. You type in a few quick ideas or whatever. You put in the name of the protagonists, the conflict resolution, or whatever. Like you put in kind of as much as you want or as little as you want, and it'll create a story for you. And so he's done a few with like Biden and stuff because they're American or whatever. And it's actually incredible, like what's come out of those things. Like, so it'll write a story of like 3 or 4 paragraphs of the base outline that you kind of give it, and it's actually pretty crazy, like what it comes up with, like these little generators and stuff. So it's interesting. I don't think that AI is to a point where we need to worry about it yet, but it's just something I like to keep an eye on and kind of, I don't know, tickles my fancy a little bit. If you go to what is this, plotgenerator.org.uk, you can create a short story using an AI thing.
That's wild.
Yeah, I mean, there's been other cases where it was a robotics company asked the robot they made if they wanted to destroy humanity, and she said, "Absolutely."
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Wow.
Oh, Facebook has some scary ones. Like if you look into like some of the stuff that they've started to develop and how it's kind of started to take off in certain instances, like there is some scary shit out there that we don't know about that is being worked on just to test the limits, and someday somebody's going to get over those limits a little bit too much. We're going to have a hell of a time shutting this thing off, but for now
I don't know if it's going to get that far. I really am not sure. This was a big problem
so.
in 2001, in the spring of 2001. There's a bunch of stories came out, CBC, New York Times. I think there was something in Technology Review. I know MIT had a bunch of white papers on the IDSS group had a bunch of white papers about this. And there was a bunch of concerns from the rabid left because all of the AI bots, all the chat bots that you were coming up with in the first half of 2001 all turned out to be horribly racist. So they were looking at having diversity hires join those teams to coach the machines into not being as racist.
No, so what's happened though is they've just flipped it. So they're now all the spam bots that they have on Twitter or whatever are still equally as racist, just against white people.
Well, and I think that was the problem with AI early in 2021, right? Was they let the computer do what the computer had observed or what the computer had been taught or learned, and all of the AI bots turned into right-wing extremist racists and had to be turned off and reprogrammed. And now we've added this extra layer of cultural sensitivity to the programming. So I don't know that the AI bots are going to be becoming particularly sentient or effective. I mean, imagine your average leftist, and then imagine having a conversation with them. It would not be unlike having a conversation with an 8-year-old child. They give you a bunch of answers. They can't really explain why they believe what they believe. But if you disagree with them, you're literally Hitler.
If you watch
seeing some parallels.
But I also have a 40-cent solution for that.
If you watch any Kamala Harris speech, she is the definition of AI predictive text.
Yeah. Like, but kind of also
for me, bro.
Like
plus
really dumb.
Oh, well, yeah. No, because it's literally like this thing, Ukraine is really small and Russia's really big. And this happened and they fought because
Can you please do her laugh?
But also look at gas prices. That's why.
Yeah, no, she doesn't. No, she doesn't even say that though. Like she'll just go in a circle, saying the same thing over and over. Just
there's not actually a good answer.
It's in an AI predictive loop.
So she's a
where it just does
politician.
it. No, it's worse than that. Like they'll Jen Psaki it and circle back, right? Like they'll go return to their talking points, but she'll literally say the same thing in the same sentence, trying to make a point about something where she doesn't actually get to the point. She'll just say that Russia's big and Ukraine's small, and they're fighting because Russia's big and Ukraine's small, and they're fighting because Russia's big and Ukraine's small, and it's just like you're stuck in a loop.
Do you know what's hilarious? And it's US politics, not really the point of the podcast, but so blasphemy, I know, right? So I was talking to somebody today and I was like, probably we were talking and it came out that probably the reason that Biden hasn't been impeached yet is because she would be the one that would take his place. And if not her, Nancy Pelosi, who's like this crazy old drunk lady.
Yeah, who makes
crazy old drunk lady from California, though.
I'm not opposed to
and she makes a lot of money on the stock market.
But she's like super dumb. Anyways,
isn't that funny how accurate she is with the stock market?
And she's good.
So strange, huh?
So strange. And how they make like a set amount. What is it, like 100,000 or 200,000 or something like that? But yet they're all like billionaires or millionaires.
Yep. Well, look at
that's
AOC.
Called the industrial complex.
AOC entered the politics as a broke bartender, and now she's worth millions in like the space of a few years. It's amazing.
Yeah,
worth is so much that
it's
she
called
was
the Industrial Revolution.
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
But again, same thing with our politicians too. We get politicians that get rich real fast too. So
I think it's interesting because
we pay them less.
Yeah. But I think it's just really interesting because, I mean, a lot of the time when we talk about North American politics and even on like an international stage, everybody does look at the states. And the problem is that I think a lot of people think Canada and the US are very similar. Like you talk to a lot of people from, a variety of places, even Canada, and they're like, oh yeah, it's the same in the States or whatever. It's like, no, we look the same. Sometimes we sound the same, like.
Unless you're from Minnesota.
Yeah.
They don't sound the same.
No, there's definitely some like regional accents that drive me like through the roof, but
Chicago.
Yeah, Chicago. But we're vastly different. And I think Canadians really don't know enough about what's going on in their own country. Like
nobody knows anything.
Wild.
That's why I suggested a civics test as part of the reason, I guess ability to vote to get your franchise.
Well, and now there's so little voting turnout. That was another thing. The provincial election in Ontario had the lowest historical voting turnout.
Because I think most people are starting to realize
I will 100% admit I did not go.
Yeah, but it's like
I forgot because I don't listen to the news. And two, when I got home, I was like, I don't fucking want to go anywhere.
I'm not gonna lie, I'm that lawn sign type of person.
But it's like a lot of people are starting to realize it's like the slave suggestion box. It's not actually going to change much because the politicians on both sides of the aisle are just variations on a theme, right? They're not going to do a whole lot of difference. So
you're not wrong, Ian, but I think you're giving a lot of people a lot more credit than they deserve in that.
100%.
That's fair, but it's also it is one of the signs you start to see when people start losing faith in the system. Is it really decreasing numbers of voter turnout? So probably somewhere in the middle.
That's really too bad because as much as it's a corrupt system, I had a conversation with a guy today that, I was like, don't get stuck in a pit of disappointment or despair, because that's really what's happening. I think is that folks are feeling burdened by the way that this country, this province, sometimes even the world is kind of taking, we're seeing some really big changes that are a result of small changes that we just haven't caught. And it's, it's very oppressive for a lot of people. And it's like, don't get caught up in that. Just, day to day, think of ways that you as a person can work on doing something better.
Well,
making
and
a
that's the thing.
change.
Start
That's
a
the-
podcast, complain about the government on the internet with your friends.
But
Don't
if
do it on
nothing
Monday
else,
nights.
don't do it on Monday night.
That's our night.
That's our night.
Yeah.
Nobody
But-
watches
Sorry.
anything but us anyway on Mondays. You might as well not even bother.
But
Number one,
that is number one.
we have
But that is
metrics.
a point, though. But that is a point because a lot of people, it's crazy how many people think that they're alone in thinking what they think. And that is extremely disheartening for a lot of folks.
Well, and
you
that's
know.
that's one of the things that I've been trying to talk to the people around here about, like my friends who are like, some of them are more black pilled than others, right? Like I've definitely gone down the road of just thinking it's all BS and we just need to crash it
Hmm.
and move on to something better. But at the same time, there are things that you can do locally to start to influence change. Like, true grassroots movements are the most powerful if they can get off the ground.
Yep.
So
So
if
Well-
so for me, like, I'm not going to run for office here. I'm not going to do things like that, but I can get involved in my community and I can start talking to the people around me. I know, Pierre, that sounds insane. I'm sorry.
that sounds horrible.
I'm
Because
sorry.
everything Liz just
But-
said could have all been solved by just not fucking talking to anybody.
See, but that's the problem.
saying.
No, but I'll disagree with you there, just to push, because when you don't talk to people around you and all you do is, I'm not saying this to you, Pierre, but people in general, we don't talk to each other anymore. You don't talk to your neighbors. You go on Twitter, you go on Instagram, you go on TikTok, give all your information to the Chinese. You go on all these platforms, and that's where you have your social interactions. So you're having these social interactions in 142 characters, where half of the people arguing with you are spam. The other half are already caught in their own ideological loop, where it's just digging them deeper, whether you're on one side or the other. I've gotten caught in that loop.
Yeah, but
So
we're-
like, you have to let me just finish.
Yeah.
You have to get out and talk to the people who are actually real people, have real conversations with those around you, to not to influence them, just to see where people are at. And if people are thinking something very different than you, then you can have some of those conversations where it's like, I understand where you're coming from, well, or maybe I don't, but like, I see where you're coming from. Well, why are they doing this, or why is that happening? And just start asking them questions, right? It's good to have those conversations, and even just that makes a big difference, instead of just having all our social interactions on the internet.
So my big defense in that is I have to talk to people because they're too stupid to only get information from Facebook.
No, you're not.
Okay.
You're not
But,
too stupid.
I mean, that's up
No,
for
but-
debate, or depending on the night. No,
No,
I don't
you're not
disagree
too
with
stupid.
anything you said. No, but I don't disagree with anything you said. But like, if I decide I don't want to interact with many people on a day-to-day basis, and I want to interact with, the 5-6 people that show up on this podcast and the few others on anything on the chat. I mean, but I don't want to interact with my neighbor for whatever reason, right? Whether I want to have that discussion about their political views or anything. Now, if you want to not interact with people and get information strictly from Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, Talk, all those social, like, I'm just okay with like not paying attention to stuff. Like, okay, fine, I'll put the news on once a week and see what's coming on, or what the government wants to do because I'm a legal firearms owning white male with a wife and a family, that I'm in the wrong for something. But like, so I don't disagree that if you want to talk to someone, 100% go at it. But not having interactions with people in your community is also not a bad thing.
Well, I think
I don't interact with people.
but
but,
that's
like,
your
my neighbor-
personality. That's your
but my neighbor-
personality.
Yeah, but my neighbor can ask me, like my neighbor next door, like I pretty much do his driveway with a snowblower almost like for the last like 2-3 winters. I don't do it for anything to gain. But, you know, where we live, our landlord, the previous landlord, whatever, someone used to do snow removal, and then he was like, fuck it, I'm not doing it anymore. And the guy was shoveling and like grabbed his chest. And he was like, yeah, I don't need to find my neighbor dead at like 6 o'clock in the morning when I'm going to work. So I do it out of common courtesy. And he was like, I appreciate it so much. I was like, okay, but like if I got to go to work, I'm going to work.
Right.
I will do it when I have time, but like don't sit here and expect me to do it. I will do it if I can and when it's convenient for me. If you need it done by 5 o'clock every morning, you're on your fucking own.
Yeah, but I think that maybe, correct me if I'm wrong, Peter, but maybe where you're going with that is that it's the supplementing of human interaction with technology. So it's not as much.
That's a whole other conversation.
Right. Yeah, so it's not as much that you aren't necessarily interacting with the people around you, Pierre, because your personality, that is not how you re-energize. That is not your thing based on what you've said, right?
Depending on the day.
Right, exactly. So
and the booze.
But you haven't supplemented your human interaction with technological interaction, right?
True.
So that's the difference. And I mean, you're onto something, Peter. I read something probably close to 10 years ago in like a psychology magazine, and they were saying that that's one of the reasons that depression is so high in North America. This is like 10 years ago, but it's because our brain, and this is obviously like a liberal magazine that I was reading at, like Psychology Today or something, and they were saying that, you know, like even though we've evolved, parts of our brain have not. We still require face-to-face interaction, but in the digital age, we've got our thumbs moving instead, right? Well, and that is, I think, where we see that difference.
That's part of the reason we've seen such a spike in mental health issues.
Yeah.
Because of COVID. So I have 2 points on that. One of them, just to touch on what you were just talking about. If you talk to somebody like this and you talk in a normal tone, they'll say, sorry, what did you say? And you drop your hand down, your mask down, and you say it again in the same volume level, they can understand you. Because I think it's something like 40% of how we actually hear and interact with people, and it's probably more. I'm just honestly pulling a number out of my ass. A large percentage of how we interact with people is not the words that we're saying and whether or not they can hear them. It's that plus the facial expressions, and seeing lips move is a huge part of actually understanding someone and what they're saying. And it's part of the reason you're seeing such a incredible drop in IQ in really young children, because they're not able to learn to talk that way. Sorry, I'm fighting mosquitoes like crazy right now. They're not able to learn to understand the adults and the people around them and learn to talk that way, get their speech developing, because they can't see the face. All they see is this. How the hell are you supposed to understand what somebody's saying when you put a muzzle on?
Yeah, I know a lot of people who had to bring their kids out of the school system for that reason.
Time,
Go ahead,
no,
Pierre.
Go ahead, Pierre.
No, so my internet got all fucked up. Liz got all like weird technical, so I got no fucking clue what she said.
Oh, I just said that, like, I know quite a few people that had to bring their kids out of the public system during COVID for that reason. It wasn't as much the, you know, like just the lockdowns and the fluctuating stuff and all that stuff. It was actually because academically, young kids were regressing academically, or they were not hitting very serious benchmarks of like linguistic ability.
So the giant problem with that is the fact that, like, over the last 10 years, at least in Ontario, so Ontario, you have to write a test, you know, certain years or whatever to get like a competence, right? Like, are most 8th graders competent in, you know, English, French, or maybe not English, science, math, and geographics, or whatever the fuck that's called in school, right? So, like, oh shit, we realize a lot of our kids are fucking retarded and stupid, and they can't pass this test. So instead of like, okay, let's enhance our curriculum to, you know, get people to a certain standard, we've dropped the standard.
Well, in
And
a lot
it's
of
like,
places, they've
that's
in a
not
lot
a
of
good
places,
thing.
not only have they dropped the level of the standard, they've dropped the standardized test completely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
Like, and I'm like,
going
They can't fail
You know-
kids. I think it's against the rules to fail kids now.
to a certain age. Yes.
and
Yeah.
so yeah, and I have giant problems with that on top of other things. That's a whole other podcast night where like we can't find good news. Like, buddy, let me know. I'll finish work at 2. I'll start drinking when the podcast starts. Just commingle. Just be quiet. And I will go on some rants for many things for that, but that is not
just-
for tonight.
So, just to get back to the localized stuff we were talking about, like there's a lot of things that we can do in our local communities to affect change on a small level. And I've talked about this a little bit before because it's something I'm passionate about. But like, and obviously everybody's different. Like I'm quite extroverted, if you can't tell. Pierre is not, if you can't tell. And that's okay. Like everybody still has a role to play, whether you're black people or don't. But
I keep to myself.
There's a lot of things that we can do, regardless of our personalities. That like everybody has a role to play. I have a strong passion for men, like for bringing up good leaders, especially men, because that's who I can relate to. It's something
It's very
that
white of you.
Thank you. I work on that a lot, actually. And also for youth. So when I moved back to my hometown here, after living in the city for a while, which good night, do I regret that. What I started in was getting involved in like a recreational association. You can do that. Like it's not a lot of time out of your life. There's lots of local organizations that you can get involved with. There's lots of ways that you can make a difference in your community to help people not just be robots. That's what I want. I don't care to, I shouldn't say that. My focus isn't to convince people that my way of thinking is right. My goal is to focus on making people who can think, making people who, building up people who can actually make their own decision instead of just being NPCs and going along with the latest thing. And so I think that's something that everybody can do, whether it's on a small scale or a larger scale.
I've lived in this town for 2.5, 3 years. I've talked to like the guy that lives next to me, the guy across the street, and that one guy I found while I was doing my run thing. But like, if someone in this town came and knocked on my door and said, "Hey, I need help with something," and like, I didn't have to go bury a body or it cost me money, I'd do it. But I'm not gonna go out of my way.
That's okay.
Like, hey, I'm here, right? And like,
Yeah, but you're on this
and I-
here. You're
Yeah.
you're talking. You're on
Exactly.
this. Like you're
Yes.
engaging. You don't have to.
Yeah, but
You
that's
don't
probably
have
because a
to
lot of people
go-
I don't
And
live
I'm not so
out
much.
here
And I'm not
listen
so
to it.
much. I'm not so much talking to you, Pierre, because I understand where you're at in your personality and where you live. It makes a big difference too. Like just talking to people in general, right? Like
Yeah.
Liz
Well-
did a jujitsu thing. Like there's lots of different ways that we can bring people together in our communities, whether it's having jujitsu in your basement or starting a fire in the bush behind your house or just going for a ruck and meeting one guy. Like there's lots of different ways you can get out there and meet people in your community. Take your dog for a walk, park your car in the street so you have to say hi to your neighbors before you walk in your house, put your car in the garage later. Like,
And I think that those applications, Peter, which are spot on, but I think that those applications are really good for people that want to change the system, want to change and enact that kind of thing. Some people are like you, Pierre, and are very content to be good humans at home. That's acceptable.
that's fine.
But that's
But-
acceptable. But I think it's more to do with like folks that are frustrated by the lack of change in society. Well,
Yep.
guess what?
And
Be
wanna
that
do
person. Yeah,
Exactly.
do something about it, because you are the
So-
person that creates that ripple effect. That might be the ultimate butterfly effect, is you going out and just changing, for the positive, changing one person's life. And I'm not saying you, Pierre, because again, I'm not talking to you. I'm saying
Thank
like,
goodness.
I'm with you, Peter, on that. So,
Yeah.
but
Yeah,
either way.
like, and I'm not opposed to having conversations with people. Don't
No.
get me wrong.
Well, yeah, you're here.
I'm not like
You're
I'm,
here.
I'm
It's
like
great.
I'm not gonna run the other way if someone makes eye contact with me.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not opposed to anything of that. But like, I've just had way too many interactions with people where like my point of view is slightly different than yours, and like somehow I'm the devil, and I'm just like, I don't have time for this, so I just
Yeah,
avoid
and-
people. But like,
and-
I'm a hot. Like, if I ever bump into someone and like they just want to have an open conversation, then like, okay, you're liberal and I'm not, and I want to have a conversation because like, okay, I want you to tell me why you think what I think is wrong, and I want to tell you what I think, or sorry, the way I think you're wrong, and let's just have a conversation where either you can understand my point of view, or I may somehow end up more liberal and you may end up less liberal. I'm all up for that. But at the end of the conversation, worst comes to worst, we hate each other more and we stand our ground more. I'm all up for that. But I mean, fine, we bump into each other, in another 5-10 minutes or whatever. Like, I'm all up for that. But there are way too many people that get butthurt that I'm like, I don't have the patience for. You know what I mean?
Yep,
Like,
Absolutely.
it's like I'm like,
well,
no, I don't want to
That's
have
the thing.
that.
Like, I'm not so much talking about those conversations. Like, those conversations can come more, and I don't like to have those conversations with people that I'm right away. Like, the conversations about what I believe and what you believe, I'd like to have after we know each other a little bit, so we can actually have a conversation about it, because it's really difficult to do that with somebody you just met when you think very differently. So
Yeah, but
when you can have
I'd
have
rather
that
do that right off the
conversation.
get-go.
So when I do have those conversations, if I run into somebody that I very quickly realize I disagree with because they pulled up in their car and they had a mask on before they stopped, I don't say, why the hell are you wearing a mask? And just like, I'm not trying to push my ideas. What I'm trying to do in those situations is ask why. I ask a lot of why. It's the play. I can't remember. There's actually a name for it. It's a psychology term, but it's forcing people to think through the reasons of why they're doing something,
Yeah.
and why they think a certain way, and that's it. But anyway, I digress. It's good to talk about these things and talk about how to kind of engage our community as much as we can. But
And I don't disagree. I just hate having that fucking, 10 interactions before that conversation. I'd rather have that conversation right off the get-go, and then like, cool, I don't have to have 6 other conversations.
I think you guys might have set a record for the longest squirrel moment in the history of the podcast.
well, it kind of
Buddy, I can keep going. I'm just saying.
So what's funny is like, peek behind the curtain for the listeners out there is when we were talking about this week's podcast yesterday, because Andrew wasn't able to be around much, and there wasn't a heavy news section. We talked about just talking about the politics of now, and what we can do to kind of change things. And so our kind of news section kind of morphed into that, and it actually not gonna lie, like, if that was our plan, we nailed it. If it wasn't, we still nailed it. So you're welcome.
Yeah.
And you can find us on Discord. The link is in the show notes. It's a good time. We have quite the active Discord crowd, whatever you're into, whether it's religion, guns, memes, prepping, whatever it may be. It's a good time. So come and check us out there. Ian, where can people find you?
Well, you can reach me at theislandretreat@gmail.com, or you can find me broadcasting Sunday evenings at 9 p.m. Eastern on YouTube and Facebook on the Canadian Prepper Podcast, where we talk about everything from the other side of this stuff, where it's like self-reliance, cost savings, peace of mind, that type of thing. And yeah, we'll see what happens when the gas runs out, I guess.
But also be aware, going on that podcast, you'll probably have to interact with a lot more people than I like to deal with.
Well, we actually encourage it under the mutual assistance groups, like the mags, like
Yeah,
Peter
exactly.
made his own bag by starting a fire in his backyard, and he,
Yeah.
came together and he got a community group right off the bat. I'm still searching for mine.
Nobody would commit, so I had to force it. Sorry.
Yeah, so I'm still searching
Yeah.
for mine. So there's another guy on the island there. You should give me a shout, and we'll see what we can do. So
Yeah. Just
Yeah.
say, you can find me, or mostly my wife or myself, off the wall customizing at Gmail. If you want a shirt, designs made, pretty much anything you can think of. I think she's got an account on Tickety Talk, Instagram, probably everything social media wise. Or if you're watching us live and you can figure out how to zoom in, there's my personal Instagram there. I mean, unless I get Mel to actually post something, there's no good info, but you can try. I'll be there. And I'm on Discord. So
You can find me on the Discord as well. I'm Wild Turkey there, or on Instagram at the Moran Life. And if you've been listening this long, you deserve a discount at RagnarokTactical.ca. Use the code Patriot at checkout. Get 10% off of your order and take money away from Andrew because he keeps all the Patreon money. We'd like to apologize to Rod Giltaco. We couldn't fit him on the show today because we're disorganized without our dear leader. And he wasn't okay with that. So you can email us at CanadianPatriotsPodcast.com/feedback and let us know what you think of the show. Always remember, you're a small fringe minority with unacceptable views.